All right, welcome to the Missouri Association for College Admission Counseling Virtual College Fair. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Just a few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. Now, this is just one of many different sessions that are happening, so be sure to sign up for more. There's a whole college fair going on tomorrow. And lastly, this presentation is being recorded, and that recording will be available within about a week at strivescan.com/Missouri. And I'd now like to go ahead and turn it over to our presenters, starting with Michelle Arashi.
Thank you, Andy. Welcome and good evening, everyone across Missouri. We're so glad that you are with us tonight. My name is Michelle Arashi. I'm a college and career counselor and coordinator at Pattonville High School here in St. Louis. Also the co-chair for our college fair programming. So I do hope that you will take advantage of the next 2 evenings and all of the colleges that are here to talk with you. Teresa?
Thanks, Michelle. I'm Teresa Bont, and I am the Senior Regional Admission Specialist at the University of Tulsa. I'm a regional admission officer. I'm based in St. Louis, Missouri, and work out of my home office representing the University of Tulsa. I'm in my 18th year in this capacity, and I've been in college admission almost 30 years. And throughout my time in college admission, I've read a lot of essays as I've been reviewing applications for admission. And hopefully I'll be able to share some of my experience with you to help this process be a little less intimidating and help you know what we are seeking from this piece of your application file. So with that, I'll get started. So I think sometimes the biggest question is, why do colleges ask for an essay? Is it just another hoop that we ask you to go through as part of the application file? And that is not it at all. And I certainly hope that I will convey this message through some of these pointers or tips that I'm sharing just now. So it really allows your application file to breathe life into that application file. It shows us that you are more than just your transcript, your academic profile. We want to see who you are through your application, through your essay as part of your application for admission. Is it the most important piece of the application file? Not necessarily. We want to make sure that you can handle our academic rigor at the university. So we want to make sure that your academic profile meets the standards that we're looking for. But the essay just helps us get to know you a little bit better. It is used as a bit of a writing sample, but it is not the only reason for you to submit this application piece, this essay. It really allows us to get to know you through this essay process. I think too many times students look at this as a burden, look at this piece of the application file as a burden, and I hope that you will change your perspective and look at it as an opportunity versus a burden. This really is the only piece of your application file where you can present your voice just how you want it to be presented, and you get to decide what you want to share with the admission officers through this piece of the application file. So I do hope that you look at it as an opportunity as to what you want to share with us to help us get to know you a little bit better through this piece of your application file.
So how do we get started? And I like how Teresa, you framed that this is an opportunity. And so, but what I say to students, and so I'm on the side as a high school counselor helping students to begin this process, as well as many English teachers may have this as an assignment in the junior class. So how do we get started? And sometimes my students will say, well, Miss Larashi, there's not anything interesting about me. I'm just an average, 16-year-old. I haven't had any, major life challenges. I'm blessed, I lead an average life, right? But no, we're all very unique individuals. We all have our story. And sometimes the best stories come out of just your everyday kinds of activities. it's more about your perspective and your voice, and how you share that. So if you're a funny person naturally, then your story should come across, with that sense, a little bit of humor. If you're not a funny person, don't force it. You have to be you. So to get started, if Teresa, if you will advance it a little bit more. These are a couple of activities that Teresa and I have would share, and we're borrowing probably from other people as well, collective knowledge here. But one of those is just doing some brainstorming. So you're not going to sit down and write the essay in one setting, just as you probably aren't writing your Shakespeare analysis essay for English class either. Like, we shouldn't be writing that in one setting. We should go through the writing process as your English teachers have taught you over time. And that begins with some brainstorming and some activities to kind of get the mind and the ideas flowing. And so one of those activities is just to make a list of adjectives about yourself or values. So, what are 10 adjectives that would describe you? Or what are 10 values that are most important to you? And if you're not sure, you can Google a list of adjectives or values and then start from that and, narrow those down. And then from that list of 10, now you're taking maybe 3 or 4 and you're saying, okay, which ones do I want to highlight to the college? What things do they not know about me from other pieces of my application? So for example, if you have a very high GPA and you've taken a lot of AP classes and you're captain of your sports team and you're on debate, the college knows you're bright. They know you're managing your time well. They can, ascertain those things from your application. So maybe you want them to know something else about you, that you are funny, or, that you're very tender-hearted, or you're an old soul. Whatever it is that they don't already know. So you want to take some of those adjectives or values and then think about experiences that will demonstrate those adjectives or those values, like little moments in time that would demonstrate that you are a sensitive person, or that you are funny, or whatever it is that you want to share. And so that's just some of your pre-writing, some of your brainstorming. Next slide. Another activity, and this is borrowed from, I say I have a crush on this gentleman, the college essay guy. Google him after our presentation, Ethan Sawyer. He is amazing. I do have a college counselor crush on him. And he shares all of these things free, and he is just an expert in a lot of these types of brainstorming activities. So one of his activities that I love is the essence object. And so you're imagining that you have an empty box, as large as you need it to be. And within that box, you're selecting 10 objects that represent the essence of who you are. And so, that might be a soccer ball, because, soccer, you've been playing since you were 5, and that's where your friendships are. Maybe it's your grandmother's sugar cookie recipe, because you love baking, and, you built that love of baking in your grandma's kitchen. And so that's really important to you. Maybe it's a paintbrush, because when you get stressed out, you like to paint, and that's, it's just something that you do for you. So whatever those objects are, you're putting them in that box. And then you're thinking about, well, why did I put this in my box? What is the little story that makes this the essence of who I am? And again, that's just kind of some of that pre-writing, because out of these experiences and these activities, you're going to start to see that this essay can develop. And a couple other ones, again, from my crush, the college essay guy. You can also ask yourself, well, what are some things that I know a lot about and that I love? Okay. And again, maybe it's not anything anywhere else in your essay, or I'm sorry, in your application that you would talk about. But if I talked about my son, he knows a lot about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and he loves it. That is nowhere on his academic transcript or his ACT score. The only way the college would know about this passion of his is if he wrote about in I know and I love. Or if you really knew me. And so again, your best friend or your mom, what would they say about you if they really, wanted to talk again about you and what is just key to who you are. So these are just a few brainstorming activities to help you, get past. We don't need this miraculous story. We just want to know who you are.
So you might be thinking that we are way ahead of the game here. Like, why are we talking about what these essays are going to be all about when you may not even know what the essay prompts are? You might not know where you're going to be applying to school. So how do I even know, what the essay prompts are to be able to begin my essays? And what Mrs. Larashi and I are here to tell you is that you actually can start these brainstorming exercises and writing down all kinds of ideas. At the very least, to do that, you could even this summer start crafting and writing your full essays, even if you don't know where you're going to be applying to school. And the reason that is because the purpose, as I said before, of these college essays is for the colleges to get to know you through your essays that you've written. So the essay prompts from the different colleges, while they might be different questions, they all come back to you. They all have that same theme of we want to get to know you, and you can present to us whatever it is that you want to tell us. So even if the essay prompt or that question is slightly different, chances are whatever exercises you have already done to be creative and to think about what you want to share will apply to that essay prompt. It very well could be, it very well should be. So there are some different types of questions that colleges might ask as part of that essay prompt, but they all truly come back to you, regardless of the way the essay prompt is phrased or how it's asked. So the you question is just really generic. Tell us about yourself. So it's very open-ended. You could share whatever it is that you want to share, and it's through the stories that you might share in your essay, which is really a personal narrative, kind of like a glorified journal entry. You're going to be sharing that story that will help us get to know you. So that tell us about yourself, regardless of what essay that you wrote over the summer. Let's hope that that's going to apply to that type of question. The why us question flips that perspective and says essentially, like, why would you want to enroll at the University of Tulsa? What is it about us that you think it could be a great match? How do you think attending the university will impact your future? That could be an essay prompt that's that why us question. And even though it sounds like we're asking you to tell us all about our own colleges, we all know about our own colleges. Our admission officers know what we have. What we want to see is, how are you going to fit into that community? How are you going to make an impact? And be specific here. This is an opportunity for you to talk about the things. Let's say you've already written this essay about, being really a great organizer. You have great organizational skills, and you organize this huge homecoming activity at your high school. Well, you can still use that essay story and then just incorporate the why us question. How do you see yourself getting involved, or how do you think attending our colleges will impact your future? You can still tell that story that allows us to get to know you, but then just really briefly, include in that story that you can't wait to jump in and get involved in our homecoming activities and get involved with organizing the bonfire at the University of Tulsa. It's as simple as that, is just taking that story and then just altering it slightly to fit that essay prompt, because truly the essence of that essay is just letting us get to know you a little bit better. The creative question could be, if you could be any key on a keyboard, what key would you be and why? It doesn't matter which key you pick, it doesn't matter to us. But here you could say something like the exclamation point, and the reason is, and it's that reasoning where you can pull in that story. You talk about the excitement that you have and the school spirit you have, and that you've been involved in pep club all of these years. And again, you just can't wait to get involved at that school. So it doesn't necessarily matter what your key is, but then you use that key to incorporate the story that you've already written. The anything goes question is that topic of your choice. Well, of course, any essay that you've written over the summer would fit the topic of your choice. I will throw out here that there's an application called the Common App. And gosh, there are, I think, 800 schools or so across the United States that are members of the Common Application, meaning you can use the one application and send it to multiple schools. They already have released the topics or the essay prompts for the junior class, the current high school junior. So the fall of 2022, those essay prompts already exist. There are 7 choices and you pick one. The 7th one is an anything goes. It's share an essay on any topic of your choice. So you have plenty of options, regardless of what you write over the summer, as long as you're presenting yourself how you want to present yourself, it's going to work at the very least for that number 7, share an essay on any topic of your choice. But you can look through those essay prompts. They're available via Google, a quick Google search of Common App essay prompts for 2022, and you will find them there, all 7 of them, and you can read through and you can see the word you is in every single one of those questions. So you pick one. All of this to say, you can start now even if you don't know the colleges where you're going to apply, because chances are whatever you write will be able to work. And if not for the application for admission, perhaps for scholarship opportunities too.
And I want to piggyback off of Teresa's comments here, and I hope that this is coming across, that this process should be centered around you, and not just the essay, but the entire college or whatever you're going to do after high school. This process should be centered around you. And I think sometimes, at least from as a high school counselor, it seems like that gets a little distorted, and that that students or families think the process should center around X college. And there's so many wonderful colleges in our country. The key is finding where you will fit, where you will shine, and college is what you make of it. And so it's about finding that right fit so that you'll take advantage of those opportunities that are presented on that campus and by the faculty and staff. And so if you keep you at the center of this process, I think that's what we're talking about here, is this essay should be about you. And then where you will be able to be you. You don't want to go to college for 4 years and have to be somebody you're not because you were trying to fit into a college. No. There are plenty of colleges. You find the ones that are going to fit you naturally and you'll be a success. And so, coming back to how you tell your story, there's kind of 2 styles, if you will. And briefly here on this slide, we have a narrative structure, which I think a lot of us are familiar with, which is sort of what you see in the movies. You have this problem that rises to a climax. There's some resolution of the problem, and then, the decline. So we see that a lot in literature and in the movies. And that cause and effect kind of narrative, you're telling a story, and that tends to fit if you have a challenge or some kind of moment some event in your life that sort of fits that story structure. Sometimes we don't really have that. And so then the thematic, or as College Essay Guy calls it, montage. This is more of a thematic. So here you're taking small snippets or different characteristics or values that you want to connect, and you're connecting them thematically. So next slide, I'll explain that a little bit further. So if you've seen the Pixar movie Inside Out, one of my favorites, Riley, the young lady, she has her islands of personality. And she has Goofball Island and Honesty Island and Family Island and Hockey Island, my favorite. So these are different pieces that make Riley, Riley. And so this would be a thematic structure. So if you wanted to, think about, well, what are those 4 or 5 values or characteristics that make me, me? And now what is a thread that connects all of those, together? And now you're talking about you from these different perspectives. So that's the thematic kind of approach. The narrative structure, again, is that once upon a time sort of deal. And here you want to make sure that your essay is balanced. And what I mean by that is you don't want the essay to be all about your grandma, because your grandma's not going to college. If initially you want to talk about an experience with grandma, that may be just a third of the essay. But what you need to get to is, what was the problem or the event that, changed how you looked at things, and what did you learn? So if it was a challenge or a coming of age kind of moment when you changed from thinking like a child to a young adult, we want to know, what did you learn? What did you do? We want to know about you, not about the details of the event or about grandma. And the other thing I will say is, these do not have to be your typical 5-paragraph English essay. They can be creative. They can have dialogue. They can have some slang in it if it's appropriate. They can have, if you speak another language, they can be more creative in the writing style, as long as the grammar and spelling and that is correct. And again, as long as it is appropriate for adults to read.
Yes. So I'm going to share 4 quick tips about writing your essays and what will make a great essay. So my tip for number 1 is, don't try to impress the admission officers, just be honest. I know that sounds kind of crazy, because of course you're trying to impress the admission officers. You want to get into those particular colleges. But what I mean here is, as Michelle already alluded to, is you're trying to find the right fit. You're trying to find the right match. And if you are trying to present yourself as something you are not, that 4-year experience is going to be quite uncomfortable, because you're always trying to be something that's not necessarily staying true to yourself. So stay true to yourself throughout this process, and start with this first tip on the essay, and try to determine what it is that you want to share with us about yourself. So if you go at it from that perspective, I think it helps you feel much more empowered through this process, versus feeling really out of control and thinking, oh gosh, I don't know what they're looking for on the college side, and always trying to figure out what it is that we want from you. And truly what we want from you is for you to be yourself, and for you to present yourself as however you want to present yourself, with those highlights that you want to share, those attributes, those adjectives that you want to share, and those values, so that we can get to know you, and that it breathes life into your application, as I mentioned before. So go at it from that perspective. If you're excited to share your stories, we're going to be excited to read them, but go at it from that perspective of, this is what I want them to know about who I am. And it will make the writing process a lot easier than if you were trying to figure out what it is we're looking for, and then changing to that. So say what you want to say, present what you want to present, just be yourself through this process. So tip number 2 is to own your story. So when you're trying to figure out a story to share, could someone else have shared that same story? And if so, if it was a shared experience, you want to include so many details that you make it your own. So you might even want to take common occurrences in your life and make them unique, and share those experiences with us. Try to find significant details in the ordinary things that you do every day. I've had students who've written college essays about their carpool to school. What is that school carpool like? And the characters who are in their carpool, and gosh, he wakes up when he gets the text message on his phone that they're outside waiting for him. All of these things help us get to know the students and what those experiences are like. So it doesn't have to be a life-changing event. It can be those ordinary things. Whatever it is that you're going to share, though, own your story, and make sure that those stories help us get to know those attributes and those adjectives that you were wanting to share with us from the very beginning when you were starting those brainstorming exercises. There are some common themes that we see on the college side, and so these are topics we would suggest you try to avoid if at all possible. And the list is there: the what I learned from sports, or mission trips, or helping the poor, losing the big game, or failing my first test, or not being selected, mental health issues, or controversial topics, or COVID-19. So if you choose to write about any of these topics, please discuss this with your college counselor, discuss this with whatever resources you have, because we do receive lots of student essays on these topics, and they become somewhat formulaic, and we lose sight of what we're learning about you because they're very, very similar from student to student. So they're topics that are so popular that they, unfortunately, they don't allow you to stand out because we see them so often. So we don't want to discount these experiences that you're having that could be life-changing, that you want to share, but chances are you could probably share a different story that will allow us to get to know you just as well. Tip number 3, I really want to put an asterisk again at the end of this tip. It says, don't repeat information from the rest of your application. Well, of course, you might be able to share, you might want to share or expand upon something that you've listed in your list of activities or honors or awards. You might want to talk about that experience and how it came to be, or the night the event was happening, and that you were chosen for a particular award or an activity. Certainly you can expand upon one of these things. So I don't mean to say you can't ever mention anything that's in your application, but the point of each piece of the application materials, we hope that they're all different things and new information that we're learning about you. The biggest thing here is that your essay should not be your list of activities in paragraph format. So that's something we don't see very often. However, every year I'll have at least a few students who submit their essays, and as I'm reading them, I think I already know all of this information because it was on their list of activities. So this is really what this tip means, is just don't write it all out, all of your activities in a paragraph format, but you could expand upon one if you'd certainly like to and have a story to share. And then the final quick tip here is be sure that the essay sounds like you. I know that sounds really simple, but we want you to have your essay proofread before you submit it. That's always a good idea, to have an extra set of eyes or a few extra pairs of eyes to review your essay and have that person share with you what they learned about you through the essay. Pretend that they don't know you and read the essay and say, okay, this is what I'm learning about you through this essay. Is that the message that you want to convey? That's the point of the essay. So that should be the first thing that that proofreader is sharing with you. But then they should get into the nitty gritty to say, oh, maybe there's a grammatical mistake they want to let you know about, or a punctuation error. Of course, you want to clean that up as much as possible because it is a writing sample, but the heart of the essay is for us to get to know you. So if we get tripped up as a reader on some grammatical mistake or a punctuation error, we may not get to that heart of that story. So make sure it's a cleanly written essay, but also don't take so much of their input. Let's say they want to rewrite a paragraph for you that at the end of the day, when you're looking at it, you think, oh gosh, paragraph 2, my mom wrote that. Well, that's not good. We want to make sure it's still your voice that we are hearing as we're reading your essay. So feel comfortable and confident when you have that final version and final draft to be able to submit, saying, this is my work, and I'm confident, and I feel very proud of the work that I'm presenting to present myself to the colleges.
So some details. Number 1, follow the directions. Our admissions colleagues read hundreds, maybe thousands of essays. And if they say 650 words or fewer, that is what they mean. So follow the directions. If they say double spaced and 12-point font, that if they said it, they wanted it for a reason. So you don't want to be something silly like that. It'd be the reason that your essay, becomes a negative rather than a positive. I find that this is particularly the case with scholarship applications. I am a parent of a senior who is in the midst of applying for scholarships and writing a lot of essays for different community organizations. And it seems that those are the more particular ones and how they want the essay presented, font and etc. Choose a good story. I think we've been kind of hammering home, that piece of that staying on track. So make sure that you've answered the essay prompt. As Teresa has shared, typically the colleges, their essay, if you boil it down, is they want to know about you. And they may phrase it differently, but if you really boiled it down, that is what they want to know. Where I see this deviating a little bit again is with scholarships, where they may be more focused, such as, what are your career goals? And maybe that wasn't really the nature of your story, but this particular scholarship wants to know about your career goals 5 years out. And so then you may, have to add or tweak your initial essay a little bit more. Be sure it's technically correct. So that's back to your English teachers and your writing centers to, make sure it's still your voice, but it is grammatically correct, and you're, using the best verbs that you can use. Here's one that catches everybody once in a while, is make sure you are using the right college name or scholarship name. After you've looked at this essay many, many times, it's easy to gloss over those things. A trick that I learned somewhere along the way is to read your essay backwards. And that really forces you to look at every word, and you'll catch things there that might be misspelled or be the wrong name. And then, work smarter, not harder. So save everything that you write and recycle it whenever you can. Initially, it is a lot of front end work, but as you go along, you'll be able to, reuse pieces and whatnot. And then when it becomes community scholarship time, as it is now in March and April, and you're applying for your chambers of commerce and your PTO scholarships, you'll have all your work done, and you'll just have to repackage those scholarship essays, and it'll be, you'll thank yourself for having saved all of this work.
So we have shared lots of brainstorming activities to help you get started. We've shared some tips for as you're writing your actual essay and the details before you submit them. What we'd like to do now is read a couple of some excerpts from a couple of real essays that I have shared over the years that really highlight some of these tips, good or bad, but highlight some of these tips. So I'm going to read, and I really just think by reading these, it really brings these tips to life. And I hope that it helps you understand what we mean by utilizing some of these brainstorming activities and some of the tips as well. So the first one, I'm just going to read an excerpt from one. It's called Orchestrating a Balanced Life. He titled his essay. It doesn't always need to be titled. Some might ask for a title, and of course that would be the case that you would need to. If it doesn't ask for a title, don't feel you need to have one. But this particular student titled his essay, and it starts, one of the most important goals that I strive for in my life is balance. To balance out my studies and develop my entire person, I have undertaken pursuits in music, sports, and outdoor adventures. I have been playing the piano since 4th grade, in which time I have participated in numerous competitions, performed for various functions, and become a member of the National Fraternity of Student Musicians. I have always exercised my passion for sports, particularly in tennis. Although I was cut from the tennis team my freshman year and didn't make varsity until my junior year, I refused to let myself become discouraged and continually worked hard to improve my game. It obviously paid off last year because I went undefeated during the regular season and helped the team bring home the Missouri State Championship. As a senior, I hope to be one of the top singles players on the team so that I can help defend the state title. The student goes on to talk about his enthusiasm for the outdoors and that he's an Eagle Scout and Boy Scouts, that he also participates in a community service program at a retirement community where he plays the piano. This student is a very well-rounded, accomplished student academically as well as extracurricularly. However, his essay, which was well-written, no grammatical errors, no punctuation errors, no spelling errors. However, he missed the point of this exercise. And I remember reading this essay and thinking, this is the perfect example of what not to do. Essentially, he wasted this opportunity for us to get to know him a little bit better. Had I counseled that student prior to his submission, if I had been, someone who was reading and proofreading his essay before he submitted it, I would say, what do you want what do you want the admission counselors to know about you through this story? And my guess is he would say that I'm well-rounded and involved in a lot of activities. And I would say, we already know that. We have a list of activities already as part of the application file. So what I would have suggested to him was to take any one of those snippets that he shared in this essay and expand upon it. That tennis example, if he would have talked only about that, to say, I was cut from the tennis team my freshman year, I would say many students, when they're cut from, many people, when they're cut from something, it bruises their ego a little bit. I know it does to mine. You know, if I'm cut from something, and I'll probably walk away. This student didn't walk away. This student practiced on his own time his entire sophomore year. His junior year made the team, not only made the team, but the team went to the state championship, and he wants to help defend the state title this year. So where was that sense of perseverance, and where did that stem from? And he can talk about that, and we would have gotten to know him so much better if he just shared that story, that one piece, versus trying to fit in everything that he's ever done into that essay. So that's an example of what not to do and what he could have done differently. And then this other snippet I'll share is from a totally different example. This is a classic example of a snippet in time. Mrs. Laura Ashley spoke about this a minute ago, and just putting lots of details into an essay, which was one of the tips as well. So this starts out, and I'll just read a little bit of this. We stand on a tiny beach, a small strip of sand left as an afterthought among the boulders lining the shore. Okay, this is how she starts her essay. So already it's captivating and hopefully drawing you in. Tiny waves break at our ankles, caressing our bare feet as a faint breeze drifts along the shore, bringing with it the salty smell of the ocean. My little brother's hand, cool and dry and mine, tugs me deeper into the gently lapping waves. I watch as the weariness of the 3-hour car ride melts off his face with the cool embrace of the water. Whatever pleasure I feel is multiplied threefold in his face, and his obvious happiness intensifies my own. As we turn around at the end of the beach, his gaze meets mine, and in a moment of clarity, I am lost in the depths of his hazel eyes that have denied me entrance so many times before. It was a single moment, an instant as fleeting as the ocean breeze, yet one that is etched in my mind forever. It was a second of connection, of parallel feelings and understanding. Whenever I look into my brother's eyes, I wish that they would reveal a pathway into his world. And then I immediately wish there was a switch I could flick on that would bridge the gap between that world and mine. My brother, you see, is autistic. Though he is already 7 years old, he has severe speech delays and knows only a few individual words. My ability to communicate with him and his ability to express his desires and needs are limited, and I often feel as though there is a tangible barrier between us. So I'll stop there and just share that when I read this essay, I didn't know any of this about her family and her experience with her brother, and it absolutely shed a different light on her application file. I already knew she was talented academically. She was involved in all kinds of activities and organization. This allowed me to get to know her so much better, and so on a deeper level to know, wow, she must be so patient and kind and caring and sympathetic and all of these things that I would not have known about her otherwise. So it's those moment in time essays where you have to put in so many details that allows us to get to know you so much better in whatever way you want to present yourself to us. Michelle, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Sure, and I will say, so Teresa presented this workshop for my Pattonville students, some years ago. I don't even remember, and I still remember that essay. It was one of the reasons that I was so happy that she was willing to join me in presenting this session tonight. So I think it just paints a picture. You can almost smell the salty water and feel the ocean breeze, and kind of take yourself almost to that place on the beach. And I think that really draws the reader in, and makes that essay memorable. And as she said, tells something about this student that nowhere else on the application would that have been revealed. So, great examples there. And everyone has stories like that. Again, it's just something that's important to you, something that is, a value or an adjective or some piece of you that they want to know about. So here are some of the resources that we have pulled for tonight. Your grab a screenshot of it if you like. As we've mentioned, the Common App, and my crush there, Ethan Sawyer, reach out. Again, he has a lot of free resources there to help you with the writing process. I would definitely, if you are a junior, this is a great time to start just doing some of those activities and to get rolling and work on it over the summer, so that, when you come back and you begin applying in the fall of your senior year, you're going to feel really good about where you are with your writing. And especially if you're applying to, more selective schools where the essays, I said essays, there might be more than one, getting a little bit of a head start this summer, would be very wise.
Yeah, and one thing I want to mention too is that there are multiple essays for many colleges, and this really is an opportunity for you to present yourself to us and for us to get to know you through that process. And and sometimes these essays or short answer questions are marked as optional. And if this is a school that you really want to attend and you're taking the time to apply, please look at it as it's required. We actually at the University of Tulsa changed our essay and short answer questions from required to optional last year. And most students are still submitting them, thankfully, but I'm always disappointed when students submit the application without having answered those questions. It always makes me wonder how seriously interested they are in the University of Tulsa. And for any of our competitive scholarships, I don't want to say I dismiss those students, but I often question their interest level. And I think, gosh, why would we go that extra mile to invite that student for the selective scholarship or move them to the next level when they're not necessarily really that interested in us? So we simply don't know if you don't submit those answers, that essay, the short answer questions. So I encourage you to look at it as required. Take the time to present yourself how you want to present yourself. And as I said at the very beginning, please try to look at it as an opportunity versus a burden. And the more questions, the more opportunities you have. So look at it as an opportunity and present yourself the way you want to present yourself. So we have our contact information here. Please feel free to reach out to either one of us. We'd be happy to address your questions. And I think now and throughout the summer is a great time to start writing down, some ideas and brainstorm over the summer. And then when you're ready to get started, actually sitting down and writing that first draft, you'll have lots of ideas already written.
I think we have just a few minutes left. If there are any questions, you can pop those into the Q&A real quickly before Andy joins us to wrap up. While you're thinking of those questions, I want to thank Teresa again for joining us tonight and sharing her expertise and her time with us, and want to thank all of you for joining us as well. And as a reminder, we have 2 more nights of colleges in our college fair. So we are still accepting registrations and hope that you will check out the 130 colleges that will be joining us Wednesday and Thursday evening.
Thanks, Michelle.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. And thank you, Teresa. Thank you so much for presenting today. A lot of really, really great information. Also, I just want to say thank you to all of you for joining us this evening as well. When you close this window, there is going to be a link to a very quick 4-question survey. So we'd appreciate any feedback that you can provide on today's session. Also, like Michelle just mentioned, this is just one of many different sessions being hosted. So please be sure to sign up for more. And lastly, in about a week, you will be able to find this session's recording, as well as all of the other session recordings at strivescan.com/Missouri. Thanks again, everyone. Oh, and it looks like we have one question in there. So if you want, we can leave it up to respond to that.
Yeah, so I just responded, sorry. So the question was about how do I reach out to a counselor if I haven't even been admitted yet? So you should have a counselor in your high school community. I hope that you do, and that you'll reach out to your school counselor or college counselor in your high school And the admission counselors at the schools that you are considering at the colleges and universities, we are always happy to chat. You may not even end up applying. So you could reach out to me at the University of Tulsa with questions about the University of Tulsa. You may not end up applying, but we are here to help you with that process and to see if it's the right fit. So please reach out, even if you haven't been admitted.
We got one more. Oh, thank you. Yep, thanks again, and have a good evening, everyone.